All right, everybody, welcome in. Really excited to see the number of attendees that we have coming in right now. Okay, there's people coming in. I can see just the number keeps rising. We're already 545 and counting. So we're ready to kick this thing off. My name is Rudy Bentley. I am here with PGC Basketball. I'm a director. I also work with our basketball development team. Before I came to PGC, I was a college coach and I played college basketball. Been around basketball my entire life, but this is my favorite place to be in the game right now. And I'm so excited to join all of you right now that are joining the call, and excited to talk about a really important topic today. Now, before we get started and I get started, my co-host gets started talking about our very important topic, I want to hear a little bit from you all. So I want to get everybody in the chat here in a moment and just get a chance to share a little bit. I also want to get you all familiar, okay, with the chat. And so with that being said, I'm going to open that chat box up. And we are going to get started with you just sharing a little bit. Okay, I want you to share a little bit about yourself and really just start off with where you are from. And so first things first, I want to make sure that everyone is posting to panelists and attendees. Okay, so I want to make sure you're posting to panelists and attendees. I don't want you just posting to me and to our staff. I want you posting to everybody so we can see where everybody's coming in from. And while we do that and you introduce yourself, I'm going to introduce our lovely co-host. First up is a special friend of mine coming from California. He was a college basketball player, college basketball coach at multiple levels from junior college and Division I. He also works with professional athletes, getting them ready for the NBA Combine, and is a longtime PGC director. This is Mr. Dustin Albert. Dustin, go ahead and come off that video mute and say hello to the people.
Hey, what's up, everybody? What's going on, Rudy? Really excited to be here. Can't wait to get to work.
All right, Dustin, I can't quite hear you right now. I'm not sure if the audio is coming in. Working on some technical difficulties there. You want to try one more time?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Still can't hear you. Try one more time.
Yep, check, 1, 2.
There we go. All right, it might have been on my end. Dustin, man, appreciate you joining on. Really excited to hear more from you, and don't want to leave. We wanted to leave our last person to be our best introduction. This is our most veteran member of our staff that's going to be joining us. Longtime high school coach, 3-time coach of the year in the state of Texas. Also did some great things in Oklahoma. Just a phenomenal person, wide breadth of knowledge, and one of my very close friends as well. So let's give it up for Mr. Matt McLeod. Matt McLeod, go ahead and come off mute, my friend, and join us. Go ahead and say hello to the people. And you are still on mute, my friend. Yep.
There we go. Got it. Might be able to coach basketball, but sometimes technology. Man, so happy to be hanging out with everybody tonight. Man, from all over the country, all over the world, it looks like we got tuning in. And Rudy, man, you are too kind. Just, man, love the game, love what it's done for me, and excited to share some wisdom with you and Dustin as we roll through over the next hour.
I love that. I love that. And we are so excited to join all of you here right now. This is going to be a really fun meeting, and just want to make sure as we get started that we record. So I'm going to we're good to go there. So with that being said, I see if you guys want to just call out a couple places. I know me personally, I always look out for Atlanta, Georgia, or Georgia, just because that's where I live right now. But I also love the Midwest. I'm originally from Madison, Wisconsin. So I'm just going to scroll through, and if I see either Georgia or Wisconsin, I'm going to shout them out. Matt, I know you've lived in a few places. Dustin, you've lived in a few places. You guys can just call out. You want to give some shout outs to some areas. I'm going to go through right now. I see ATL right there. ATL against
Los Angeles in the group chat. Let's go. West Coast, best coast.
What's up, Brooke Meyer from Milwaukee? I coached at Wisconsin Lutheran College there for a little while. Got some family in Milwaukee. I always love there.
Man, I love seeing Michael from Hobbs. Let me tell you, if you don't know, Hobbs has great basketball in New Mexico. Do not sleep on Hobbs basketball. Michael, appreciate you joining us tonight.
Love that. Love that. Paul from Wisconsin. How you doing? How you doing? Very nice. We got some Canadians in the building.
You got Nick from Pennsylvania. PA has got some incredible hoopers. Scranton, shout out.
Incredible hoopers out there. I see the East Coast is represent. Ooh, okay. Not Wisconsin, but Minnesota. Okay, got some love from Minnesota. Got some family there as well. So we got people from all over the place. New Mexico.
Rudy, man. Rudy, sorry, I got two more. I got Dina from Charlotte. That's my home state. Love seeing that. And then Isaiah coming in from Houston. Man, love the time I lived in Houston, Texas. Such a great city. And great people tonight.
Great people, great people. Well, hey, we're really excited to get to talk with you all, and we don't want to waste a lot of time. You guys are here, you want to learn, you want to gain some knowledge, and I want to make sure we give plenty of time for our amazing co-panelists and co-hosts to get to spread a lot of knowledge. I'll sprinkle some things in, but they've just got so much they're ready to give you. And so just going to start off with this topic, guys. You know, we're talking about secrets, right? 5 secrets to having your best season ever. And as we all know, right, having a great start to the season, that's really going to get the ball rolling and get some momentum going. And so we're going to talk a lot about some things, particularly at the beginning of your season. Last year, we did one talking about, you know, preseason, how you make a team and things like that. But now let's say you made the team, you're on the roster. How do you go out there and dominate your year? And so to get things started off, just want to, you know, get things started with secret number 1. And secret number 1 is the one thing you must do before asking your coach for more playing time, more shots in the game, etc. What's the one thing you need to do before you go up and you ask your coach? And so with that in mind, I know I have some thoughts. I know you guys have some thoughts. I'm going to pass it to Mr. McLeod. You're the coach. You're the high school guy that's been in those shoes. Would love to hear what you got to say about when and when you should, you know, talk to your coach about more playing time and what you should do before then.
Oh man, Rudy, that's such a tough one. You know, I've seen this go really well over the years. When I was a player, did not go very well for me. Wish I would have known some of the things that we're talking about tonight. But you know, I'm actually going to answer your question with a question. Players, what are we doing first? Like, are we starring in our current role before we're actually asking for more of a role? And I think that's the biggest thing that's missed. You know, we all want more shots. We all want more minutes. We all want more, whatever it is, maybe a chance to start. But it's really hard to get that new role from a coach if you're not currently starring in your role. Yeah, and I would just say this: if you don't know what your current role is, ask and go and be the best player in that role, and then look for opportunities to earn more pieces.
Snaps to that. And here at PGC, we love to snap. We give celebrations to people when they drop some knowledge. You know, we'll snap for our PGC directors when they give a gem, and that was definitely one. Dustin, what comes to mind? What would you like to add on top of that great golden nugget?
Yeah, really well said, Matt. I think just to build off that, and it's something we talk about at our scoring college and our shooting colleges, but one is like, are we addressing the right problem? Meaning my favorite motto is clarity creates consistency, meaning clarity of role creates consistency of play as a player, and then clarity of mindset creates consistency of coaching for coaches. So first and foremost, like Matt said, do I know what my role is? And once I know my role and I have clarity in it, then I can master that role. And once that role's been mastered, now I start to get other little things. And so the second part of that is like, don't get so caught up in looking at what other people are doing that you take away from what you can do really well. What we like to say is don't miss a meal staring at somebody else's plate. And so for you, it's knowing first and foremost, what is my role for this team? Is it attacking short closeouts? Is it hitting corner threes at volume? Is it getting paint touches? And am I doing that really well? And that's the first thing to know.
That is gold. I love what both of you guys had to say right there. And I struggle with this, right? Because I feel for players. I do. And I've been in these shoes, right? I've been in those seats where you feel like you're not getting playing time that you should, or you feel like so-and-so's getting playing time and you're just as good, if not better. And you want to go talk to the coach and figure out what's the deal. And the truth of the matter is, and I don't know, you guys check me if I'm wrong here, but sometimes, especially as I've left the player, you know, side of things and went to the coach and the trainer side of things, the first thing I see for many players is there's a need for a real reality check. And I'm not saying that to be mean. I'm saying that to say we often get bad advice. We often get told things that aren't necessarily true because we listen to people that while they might have our best interests in heart, they love us so much that they can't be objective. And so a lot of times you'll see players, they think that they're just as good as Johnny or just as good as Julie because their parents said they were just as good as Johnny or just as good as Julie. And their trainer that works with them every day, and they have a vested interest in you being good and being successful. They tell you you're just as good, if not better. And sometimes the reality is you're just not there yet. If you're not getting the playing time, the reality is that 9 times out of 10, it's not politics. It's not that a coach doesn't like you. It's just that you're not giving the things that you need to be giving at a high enough level to play in the role that you want to play in. Your skill sets and abilities compared to the other people on your team, it's not going to get you where you want to go. And that is a tough pill to swallow. And a lot of people that love you don't want to share that, but you got to find that truth somewhere, because sometimes the reality is you just have to work on some things. You have to get better. You have to improve. And if you can get that reality check, though it might not feel great in the moment, it might be what you need if you actually want to start making the changes that you want to see. You guys have anything to add on that at all?
Yeah, no, Reese, you were talking, one thing that came to mind is, what does your team need that's not happening right now? As you're thinking about, again, we're probably still begin early practice for some athletes. Maybe we're still a couple weeks away from practice for others, but who graduated from last year? Who left the program? What are the pieces that your coach needs you to step up and fill? And when you start doing those things in practice consistently, you're actually not going to have to be the one initiating this conversation. Coach is going to come to you. And so I would be on the lookout right now. Like, maybe the scoring is coming back from last year, but maybe our top rebounders are our best defender, or that hustle guy or girl that's just always on the floor for loose balls, always trying to take charges, always hyping the team up. Like, what is it your team needs? And then do that at a really high level, and you'll be amazed at what doors open for you.
That's huge, Matt. That's so key. And I see, as you were talking, I was just kind of scrolling, and just two quick hitters on that chat box. It's a great one, and we're going to check through there. But I see some questions coming in, like, how do we do this or how do we do that? There's actually a Q&A, and that's my bad. I got so excited about the topic and introducing my friends, I didn't talk about the difference. There's actually a question and answer box at the bottom of your screens, and you can go put all your questions in there, because there's going to be a lot of comments and things coming through. And so we don't want to miss your question by not getting it captured. So if you have a question, throw it in the Q&A. If you have a comment, then throw it into the chat box. So just want to make that. And then one more quick thing. I just saw a couple things. People were sharing some celebrations. They're excited about their tryouts coming up. And some people might have posted some things that aren't exactly the culture that we're trying to abide by. Things like, I don't care. We always want to make sure our chat box stays positive. If you can't stay positive, then stay out. Okay. We're just going to make that very simple right now. We don't do the cyberbullying thing here at PGC. So if that's who you are, please stop immediately. We just want to make sure we keep this a safe space for everybody. So that's all I got to say on that. Dustin, you came off. I know you had something that you wanted to add to what we were talking about. And so, Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, for sure. Now, really well said by Matt as well. I want to build on it a little bit. I think, like, with a lot of players, when they get to the college level, it's the exact same thing. There are three commonalities offensively, defensively, that'll keep you off the floor, meaning the ability to stay on the floor. For the most part, before you learn to win games, you got to learn to not lose games. It's the same thing with playing as a player. Before you learn to, like, master and play a lot of minutes, you got to learn how to not, shoot yourself in the foot. And the big three things, regardless of level and age and stage, that players need to eliminate if they want to play more minutes. The first one is fouls. So the ability to guard your yard. And as a basketball player, we like to say at our sessions, you are who you can guard. So if you can guard ones, you're valuable. If you can guard 1 through 4, you're extremely valuable. So number one is being able to eliminate fouls. Number two is missed shots, specifically shooting shots off balance. Because for players, like, at all times, we're trying to cultivate shot selection as a team. And the one who takes tough off balance shots is the one who coaches get pretty consistent with taking off the floor. And then number three is turnovers, specifically live ball turnovers that lead to layups going the other way. So if you can eliminate fouling somebody else, missing shots off balance, and having turnovers, I like to call it the SABA principle, SABA, small advantage equals big advantage. And so if you can eliminate these little things, you'll create small advantages for your team, and that creates bigger advantages for you later in games. So, yeah.
Man, beautiful. So I think, to sum all this up, and I know we're throwing a lot of things at you, so I hope you're taking notes, just like we do at Point Guard College sessions across the country, across the globe. Anytime we're in a classroom, we're expecting that players are going to be taking notes. Parents, you as well, if you want to grab a notepad or pull that phone out, you want to make sure you're taking notes, because these are dimes being dropped by our directors. Before we go on to our next piece, our next kind of topic, it's very closely in line. So we're not just leaving the topic altogether, don't worry. But just want to sum up some things that Matt and Dustin so eloquently put. And so when it comes to, before you talk to your coach, number one is you got to do a reality check. Okay. Think about, hey, where am I compared to the other people? Get some realistic feedback, not somebody that, your grandma, your mom, somebody that just loves you and worships the ground you walk on, thinks you're the best thing ever. Get some tough feedback from somebody that you trust, that's a basketball mind, that's going to tell you the truth. And you got to make sure, in addition to that, that you are doing all the things that your coach loves, like not turning the ball over, guarding people, making sure you're not getting blown by, understanding the system that your coach is running and not messing up the plays. And then third is find a thing, right, that you do better than everybody else, right? Find your niche, find the thing that your team needs. Maybe your team struggles in rebounding. You see a need, you fill a need. Right. You have a great scorer, right? You're a great post player, but you don't have somebody that's great at throwing post entry passes. You better be out there faking a pass to make a pass and practice being the best post entry person in your league. So once you can not turn the ball over and guard people, once you've gotten some realistic feedback about where you are, and once you found your niche that you do better than everybody else, if you do all those things and you're still not getting the playing time that you want, then maybe it is time for you to go talk to your coach. But you got to make sure that you're doing your job first. Don't go and at first time you don't get what you don't want. It's week 1 and you're on the second team, you're on blue team and white team's the starting team, and all of a sudden you're in your feelings about it. Don't just go run into the coach right away. That actually might hurt more than it helps. And so with that in mind, I want to move on to secret number 2. And secret number 2, Matt, I'm actually going to throw it back to you. Dustin, you're going to lead the next 2. But Matt, I'm just really interested actually to hear what you have to say, because Matt is, a former high school coach, a longtime high school coach. And I know you've had plenty of these conversations. I've actually had you tell me about some of them. And so, yeah, secret number 2 that we're going to talk about today in terms of having the best season you can. What are the exact words you should use when asking your coach how to get more playing time? And when is the most appropriate time to ask? Matt, take it away.
Man, another tough one. Dustin, I hope yours are as tough as mine are, because these are those conversations that so often can make and break the relationship with us as players, with our coaches. With our teams, we always had basically a 3-step approach. Anytime a player wants to talk about playing time, the role on the team, even ideas for things that we could do offensively, defensively, with our culture, whatever it was. But it was right time, right place, right attitude. And I think so often when we as players, we mess up at least one of those 3 things. Is it the right time? In the fourth quarter, during a timeout, when you're frustrated, you're on the floor, that is not the time to say, Coach, why am I not in the game? Even though you mean well, it's not the right time. The right place. Maybe are you doing this in front of the entire team? Is this a conversation you have one-on-one with a coach? The right attitude. And I think the right attitude is the most important. Coaches love players who love their teammates. And so if it ever comes across in such a way that I don't have my teammates' best interest at heart, if I'm more about me than I am the team, and there's nothing wrong with enjoying individual success. I think the best teams have players who also have great individual success, but it's find that balance. And so here's what I'd recommend. If that's a conversation you want to have with your coach, especially now that it's early in the season, I would go up to your coach, to him or to her, and say, hey, Coach, would love to talk about my role in the team this coming season. Would love to see not only this role that you see for me early in the season, but maybe potential future roles if I continue to work hard. What would be a good time for us to have that conversation? And then once you allow your coach to begin to dictate when the conversation happens, in the right time, the right place, you go in the right attitude, then at least I found, Rudy, and Dustin, you can speak to this as well. But then the exact words don't quite matter as much when it's more the attitude and the setting around those conversations. I'll let one of you 2 jump in.
Dustin, I've already spoke too much. What you got?
No, you're good. I had a couple things. One is, this is a great anecdote that just came out about Tom Brady when he was at Michigan. I promise I'll answer your question. But when Tom was at Michigan, he was the 3rd string quarterback. He was getting 2 reps a day of practice. And he went to the team sports psychologist. And the sports psychologist had him talk about what's going on. And he says, I'm only getting 2 reps. I can't show how good I am, this, that, and the other. And the sports psychologist said, the more you worry about things you can't control, the less control you have. So for you, I want you to make those 2 reps the greatest reps you've ever had. Imagine it's Super Bowl 39, use your energy and make them unbelievable and see what happens. And so Tom did that, and 2 reps became 10, 10 became 15, 15 became a starter became, an incredible late pick in the NFL draft who worked his way up to take Drew Bledsoe's job and never look back. And the cool wisdom from that is one, there's a lot of self-ownership that needs to happen first. Before I think you talk to a coach about playing time, which is a really big issue, I think you ask yourself these 3 questions. Number 1 is, how am I acting? Meaning, am I acting really well? Do I have good energy at practice every day? Number 2, how am I interacting? Meaning, am I good with my teammates? Do I cause rifts? Am I someone who elevates somebody else? Like Matt says, do I rise by lifting others? And then number 3, and this is my big one, is how am I responding? Meaning when adversity hits, how am I, whether I'm playing or not, do I have good energy? And if I do those things really well, I'm acting well, I'm interacting well, and I'm responding well, then you go to the coach. And I think you have to be very cognizant of how you word this, because if you don't do it well, it may rub your coach the wrong way. You want to always know that you won't always have agreement with your coach, but you must have alignment, because that's the person who controls the PT. And so with the coach, what I found when I was a head college coach, my players, when they'd ask it like this, I loved it. They would say, hey, coach, for me, where can I improve to help the team improve? And I think that's a really good way to word it. Like, and usually for me, I would tell a point guard, hey, you got to stop turning the ball over so much in late game situations because I don't trust you now. If you can show me in practice that you can get into the paint on two and make good decisions, there's room for you to play. And so just to sum it all up, one, the phrasing is, where can I improve to help the team improve? And then two is just having a self-check of how you're acting, how you're interacting, and then how you're responding to adversity.
Those are so good. And I don't even really want to add on to those points because I think they're just so spot on. I would like to just give a reminder though. This only happens if you've done the things that we talked about in secret number one. So your coaches, whether or not you're performing better in terms of you're making more shots, you are guarding better, coaches can see effort and they can see intention. And so if they don't see you doing everything that you can, and they don't see you actively for weeks before that conversation even happens, they see you trying really hard to make things work. If you just go through the motions and then you come up and do all the things that they just said, it's probably still going to fall on deaf ears with your coach. Now, if you've been putting the work in, you're the first person in, the last person out, they see you trying to find a role within the team. They see you trying your hardest to close out. You just can't seem to keep somebody in front of you, whatever it is, right? They see you studying afterwards or writing down the plays. If they see that, that's going to lead to a lot more trust with that coach. Matt, I think I sparked a thought there. I'm going to pass it back to you. What you got?
You did. You made a great point earlier about, are we listening to the right people? And I think another piece would be this. Are your teammates, or at least a couple of your teammates, come and say, man, you should be playing more. Rudy, I don't know what's going on with coach right now, but you need to be on the floor more, like what you're doing. And if nobody on the team is doing that, there's probably more that I need to do as a player first before trying to have this conversation, right? Because it's going to stand out. People are going to see it. Also, maybe sometimes there's a safe space with an assistant coach to ask, hey, is this something worth bringing up right now? I'm feeling this way. Can you kind of check me a little bit? I don't know, Dustin, have you seen that live out or anything else that you would add?
Yeah, just a little thing to add. And it's like, this is the big one is for players at this age, it doesn't matter what age you are listening to this, there's such a process to this thing. Where you are currently on October 22nd, 2023 will not be where you are in April 2024 if you commit to putting a lot of work in. Like if you look to get a little bit better every single day, this playing time thing will go away drastically. As my mentor says, the work is the win. Meaning make the work, what you do daily, your process, the most valuable thing. And it's amazing how much better you get much more quickly. My only piece of advice, and I'm sure you guys understand this too, is stop caring so much about what other people think about, I hope my coach doesn't think I'm playing poorly. I hope my teammates don't think I'm not playing well. Because as a human being or as a basketball player, another person's head is a really bad place for your self-worth to live. And if you consistently worry about what other people think, you're not going to operate at your best.
This just gets me excited. And I can see some people in there, right? They're throwing out thank yous and they appreciate it. And, like this is just really good stuff. So yeah, if y'all hear something that you really like, just go ahead and throw some snaps or throw, hey, that's a bar, right? If you hear them say something, I know, players love to get that praise, but I know our coaches, it gets us hyped too. And I think there's a bunch of really good stuff happening right now. So with that being said, fellas, I think you hit the nail on the head. And we might come back to some of these. I see some stuff in the Q&A box that's gold. So we're probably going to come back to these. But I do want to move on to number 3. And for number 3, this is kind of switching gears a little bit because it's less about coaches and more about you. So number 3, our secret number 3 is a super basic warm-up routine used before practices and games by top NBA and WNBA players that can help you, quote unquote, get in the zone and perform at your best. And if you don't mind, guys, I'm just going to take this one real quick and I'm going to start it off. And then I know, Dustin, you had some key insights on this one. Matt, I know you have a bunch. So I'm just going to drop in really quickly a couple quick thoughts. Okay. First one, it's a 3-step process. And before I give you the actual workout part, I'm going to give you this. I just put it in a chat box. Start close, be you, and be consistent. Okay. 3-step process to building out this workout. This is what pros do. This is what high-level players do. I'm going to expand on it, but understanding those are the main principles. Start close, be you, and be consistent. Now, what does that mean? Start close. Do not go on the court and start chucking threes. You need to see the ball go in. You need to build out confidence. You need to build your foundation. You need to find your feel. And that happens 3 to 5 feet away from the basket. If you watch pros, they start close to the basket, they find their touch, and they slowly extend their range back out to the free throw line, to the three-point line, to half court, right? Logo Lillard gets to the logo, but he doesn't start at the logo. He starts it close and then works his way back. Okay, BU, what does that mean? Game shots, game spots, game speed, and that's particular to you. So who are you, right? What are the shots that you actually get in games that your coach allows you to shoot, that your offense is expecting you to make consistently? And you need to figure out what are those shots, and I need to get, after I get my close to far out warm-up, I just want to get a certain number of shots from my spots at game speed, okay? And then be consistent. You got to experiment a little bit at first to find that thing that feels right. But once you find a routine, do it the same way every time. And I could expand on that even more, but consistent habits lead to consistent results. Consistent routines lead to consistent results. It builds confidence. It builds focus. When you do the same thing over and over again, you feel like you're creating some type of consistency. You have some control over the outcome. And so making sure that you're starting close, that you practice shots that you're going to get to shoot, and that you're incredibly consistent and do that same workout every single time, that's really, really going to help. And that's what all star players do. So before I give you a specific routine, I want to pass it over. Dustin, what you got? What would you like to add to that?
Yeah, just to build on that, that was so well said. But like this was our motto of the NBA pre-draft stuff, and I've said it on here before, but it's the same. I think is professionals stick to a schedule, amateurs let life get in the way. Meaning, like Rudy said, intensity will get you started, but consistency will keep you going. And so if you can get in the gym for 2 days a week and you do a 5-hour workout, kinesthetically, that is not as good for you as getting in the gym 6 days in a row for a 30-minute workout. Specifically, the way our bodies develop and work is a good night's sleep and consistent work will help the body and the mind connect. The hardware and the software will get better by doing consistent things. Like Rudy said, starting close. For our NBA pre-draft guys, it's always form shots from 3 different spots, very close to the basket, and then high glass finishes and swish shots. And we're working on wrist dexterity and we're working on touch, because everyone knows this on the call. It is so not fun playing pickup basketball when you don't feel the touch is there. Your passes aren't on target, your finishes don't go where they want to, your jumper feels off. And so by getting the wrist pronated and getting form shots close, and then high glass finishes, low glass finishes, and swish shots with either runners or floaters, that's how you should start. And that discipline does so many good things for you. You get to see the ball go through the net. You get to feel the ball come off the hand. You get a little bit of confidence. But like Rudy said, I retweet that 100%. It's like start close and work your way back. Whatever your process is, do it consistently.
Man, so good. Hey, Dustin, as I pass it over to Matt, if you want to put that quote into the chat box for everybody, that pros have schedules, amateurs let life get in the way. I think a couple people really wanted that one. So if you want to throw that in there. Matt, I'm going to pass it to you. What do you got to add? What other nuggets do you have on this topic?
Dustin, you gave us so much. I'm still spinning right now on all that great info. The one thing that I've found with the pros I've worked with, been around, and the great high school and college players as well, is there's a piece of their pre-practice routine or pre-game routine that is 100% mentally focused. If you're not spending time practicing your visualization, if you're not spending time actually like thinking through situations in the game, the scouting report, when you see a certain defense, what you do, and actually taking the time to close your eyes and visualize your response to those moments, it's going to be really tough to be successful. We can, as a shooter, we can get some shots up before a game and we can kind of work on that, but we're not gonna have all 5 players on our team doing everything we need to do in that 8 to 10 minutes before game starts. And so spending time visualizing and getting your mind right, especially how you're going to respond to mistakes, visualizing yourself turning the ball over. What do you do? Right? Do you, what we used to call emotionally vomit on the floor by like just head down, walking back, whatever it is, just being, a terrible representation of yourself? Or do you sprint back and try to get a deflection and force them to inbound the ball from the baseline out of bounds? Do you communicate great with your teammates to make sure everybody's matched up as we're going through our transition? But spending time visualizing things going well and things not going well is a must add to any player's pre-practice or pre-game routine.
That's so good, guys. And I'm going to drop this in here. And I know I want to touch on this too, because I know this is hard. Some people, I'm sure, are already thinking, and actually, I think I just saw it in the chat box earlier about AAU. Like, what do you do if you have AAU and you only have like a 3-minute warm up? So I think we got to address that elephant in the room. But just real quick, and if everybody can stop in the chat here momentarily, because I just want to drop this in and have everybody be able to see it. So this is the warm up 100. We've used this with players. I've used this with players from all different levels. And so basically what it is, the first 30 is just seeing the ball go in. So it's that start and close piece. So you get 30 shots, you get 5 makes of 6 different shots. So you have 1-hand form shots, get your second hand on there, take a step back, 2-step form shots. Okay, that gets you to 10. Then you shoot free throws. Okay, after free throws, you go pull up to the right, make 5, pull up to the left, make 5, then catch and shoot threes. After you do that, okay, you go out there and you get shots. Okay, your shots. Okay, so that's when you go out there and you're going 40 shots of whatever it is that you're going to get the most in games, right? It might be, if you're a post player, hook shots. If you're a point guard that gets to the paint a lot, maybe you're shooting a lot of floaters and mid-range pull-ups. And then at the end, you just shoot 30 catch and shoot threes, okay, just to work and make catch and shoot threes, just to make sure that you're getting that range and consistency down. Okay, we do that with a lot of our players, and it's just 100 shots at the beginning. It takes about 10 minutes, and it's a great way for players to get warmed up. A lot of our college guys did it. High school players that I train, that's what they do on game days. And I would say this, if you are playing AAU, what you do before you get to the gym for your AAU games is very, very important. If you're playing and you got a tournament that's close, meaning you're, at home basically, and you're going from home into that game, if you have a Friday game at 6:30, when you get done with school, you should go to the gym and shoot. Or before you go to school on Friday, you should get in the gym and shoot, and you do your workout. If you do your workout on the day of, it doesn't have to be right before the game, and you still can have that feel and have that consistency. Because the reality is, we all know it. AAU comes around, you're playing the 7:30 game, and refs are ready to go home, and the game before went into overtime, they might put 30 seconds on the clock, and that might be what you have for your warm-up. So if you don't do it before you get to the gym, the reality is you're basing your game off hope. And I know great players, that's not what they base their game off. They base their game off habits, and they base their game off consistency. And so what I will say to that is, when it comes to getting your work in, sticking with your process, regardless of what else is going on, great players will find a way. Average players will find an excuse every time. I've seen AAU kids, high-level kids that went on to play college basketball. They had their LA Fitness membership, and they made sure it was national. So that way, no matter where they went, they would go to the local LA Fitness no matter where they were playing. And they would still go in. If they traveled and they were in a hotel, they would go to LA Fitness at 5:30, get their shots in, and then go play their 8 a.m. game. Like, great players are going to find a way to get their work in, because they will not let whatever is happening get in the way of their process. And so I say that to say, if you really care, go find a way, and you can do it. Now, I know we could probably go on that for a while, but I'm going to pause there. And I know we got some other stuff to get to. We still got 2 secrets left, guys. Gosh, I'm so excited. We're going through this crazy, but I want to make sure we get to these last 2 because they're important. And so, Dustin, you're going to lead this one for secret number 4. Okay. Why focusing on being the most talented player on the team could ruin your season before it even starts. Go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, no, that's really good. And again, this is something we talk about at all of our courses. I do the scoring college course, but it's the same at all of our courses. For all of you on the call, it's not about being the most talented. It's about being the most consistent, meaning you should take pride when you walk out of a room and someone else talks about you and your game. Hopefully they talk about the type of teammate that you are, but then also the fact that you just don't leave the gym. What we used to say when I was a college player was you should live in a way that demands an explanation. Meaning you work so hard, you get in the gym for so many hours that people ask why you do the things that you do. But it's because you want to go places that people haven't gone. You want to play at higher levels. And so to answer your question, Rudy, I think just the moment you get wrapped up in your current results, how you're playing right now, you've missed the boat of all this potential that you could be for the next couple of months. Right now, how you're going to play at the beginning of the season is a lagging measure of all the work you put in June, July, and August. How you're going to play in December and January is a lagging measure of how you've been performing and practicing August, September, October. All the work that you did in the summer will pay off at the beginning of the season. I didn't learn this, and I told Rudy this, but even in college, I played so well the first month of every season because I go really hard in the summer, and I'm, playing really well, scoring a lot of points. And then the first 3 weeks of the season are done, and I go and I play really poorly because I was satisfied with how I was playing at the beginning of the season. And then Christmas break comes, and I work really, really, really hard in Christmas break. And so then, January comes and I'm playing really well in January. And then I'm satisfied with that. And then I tail off and play really poorly to the end of the season. So it's all about knowing, like, one, what is my process? Process are the little habits you do daily to get you better, right? And so whether that's getting shots up in the gym, that's cardio work, that's whatever, it's some procedure in place that whether you're playing well or not, you do this thing. If you only work hard when you're playing well, that's not a process. That's you just worrying about the result. And so it's really hard to hear and it's hard to do at a young age. But if you've put a process in place, you are unbelievable. And the last thing I'll say is this, like, JJ Redick is one of my favorite players. In the offseason on Sundays, he would make 342 shots, 7 spots on the floor, 20 spot twos, 20 spot threes, 3 one dribble pull-ups going right, 3 one dribble pull-ups going left, and then 20 free throws. That makes 342. He's so obsessed with this process, his company is now called 342 Productions. Like, that was the thing he did every single Sunday from the age of 11 to when he retired, that whether he was playing well or not, he followed that thing. It's all about creating one for yourself.
That was a lot of bars there, Dustin. Go just look in the chat and just feel the love, man. You're spitting some things right now. I love to hear it. Love to hear it. Matt, what else do you have to add on this? I know this is one that we've spoke of before. So go ahead and take it away, man. Anything you want to add to this?
I think really that everything you guys have been talking about right now, like, is so great, and several people in the chat box mentioned, man, so much information right now, and what to focus on. And I would say, with this secret specifically, like, focus on things that you've heard Dustin and Rudy talking about. And that's such a great place to start. But Rudy, feel free to take us on to the next one.
And I think that's a good point, Matt, just to sit in what you just said, because I do. This is a lot of information, and that's with intention. We're just here because we want to give you as much as we possibly can. We are going to send a recording out. I know some people have been worried about that. So you'll be able to watch it back if you want to watch it back and take more notes. That's why we wanted you to write it down so you could take the most important things out. But also, shameless plug, you should come to a session. If you haven't come to a PGC session yet, we do this for 8:45 in the morning till 10:15 at night for 5 days. So if you really want to get this stuff and actually have time to sit in it, sessions are where you can really have some of this stuff sit because we have more time to sit in it. Dustin, you got something to add there?
Tiny plug with that as well. And again, I went to PGC 3 times as an athlete in high school. It's the only reason I played in college. It's the only reason I coach in college. Like, this is an obsession masquerading as a podcast right now, meaning the 3 of us are obsessed with the game of basketball in a good way. And we love teaching. Like, for those of you listening, my favorite part about PGC is I went into a room and I looked around and everyone else was like-minded and they made me so much better, so much quicker. I'm like, oh, this dude from Ohio is a dog. He can really handle the ball. He makes me better. Oh, this player from Canada, we get a lot of international athletes. This player is just like me. Like, they're a person in their area who's obsessed with basketball. And even if you're not super obsessed, it's just a great place to find like-minded people where you can grow as a leader and a hooper. All right, back to you, Rudy.
Man, I'm jealous, Dustin, because you went 3 times, I only went twice. Now I feel inadequate. Comparisons to Steve Ball Joy. Anyway, quick thing before we move on from this topic. This is something that I go into detail with at my sessions in the summer, but I want to give it to you all right now in a short notes version because I think it's important. On this topic, secret number 4, which is why focus on being the most talented player in your team could ruin your season before it starts. And I'm passionate about this topic because I see it happen so many times. You want to be the creator on your team. You want to be, sometimes with younger players, we'll call it the planet. You want to be the planet on your team. We call it the planet because planets, a lot of times they have orbits. Things kind of orbit around them, right? Things gravitate towards, they have gravitational pull. And when you're the best player on a team, you're like a planet. Everything rotates, everything gravitates towards you. The defense bends to your will. The other team's coaches build out scouting reports to stop you. The offense is set up around getting you the ball in your spot so you can succeed. You have gravity. You are the star player. And that's what we all dream about being. And the reality is that's going to be 1, maybe 2 players max per team. But there's usually 15 players on a team, which means 13 to 14 players on every team are not going to be that person. And the truth of the matter is, every time you go up a level, meaning you go from freshman to JV, JV to varsity, middle school to high school on to college to professional, every time you level up, you're probably going to have to level down in terms of your status on the team. And even if you were the best player on your high school team, you're not going to be the superstar walking in your first day on a college campus. So every team has kind of different roles. There's team members that are just people on a team. They don't really play, but they, they're there. They're the bench mob, right? You got the people that are finishers. They can make shots. They can finish either at the rim or finish catch and shoots. They don't create the advantage. The offense isn't made for them. But if the star player can go and draw three, they can kick out and you can make a shot. And then you have the stars. If you can't be anything other than a star, every time you move up levels, you're going to ride the bench until you're the best player on the team again. Or you're going to find yourself out of a job and nobody's going to want you because they don't think you can downshift into another role. And so I think it's really important when you go into a season to recognize, am I actually the best player on this team? And if I'm not, what is the job that I'm going to be required to do? For me to get on the floor, what do I actually have to be able to do? Maybe it's not break somebody down off the dribble and hit a 3 combo move and then into a finish at the rim. Maybe it's I just need to sit in the corner and catch and shoot threes. Maybe I need to be Duncan Robinson or PJ Tucker, and I don't need to be Jimmy Butler. When you start to realize what your role is on a team and you start to train accordingly, that's actually going to help you get more playing time. And we all know this. If we get on the floor more, we're going to produce more. Like if you got talent and you can get 15 minutes instead of 5, you're probably going to play better. You'll show the coach that you can do more things. Figuring out what you need to get on the floor is a ticket to showing the other things that you can do. And so it's really important that when you are going into your preseason, you don't focus on just being the most talented player. You focus on being the best version of what your team needs you to be. If that's a rebounder, go get 15 rebounds a game. If that's guarding the best player on the other team as a guard, go focus on being an absolute lockdown defender and focus on how to guard the best players in your area. Like figure out what you need to do and star in that role. Okay, so that's what I got there, making sure that you understand. I know we could probably go farther than that, but I just felt like it was important. I really wanted to hit that because I see a lot of young players struggle putting a lot of time and effort and energy into things that's actually not going to lead to playing time for them in their seasons, and that really hurts my heart. So with that being said, Dustin, I'm passing it back to you. We're going on to secret number 5, how to know when to change your goals so you can continue reaching new peaks in your basketball career. So when do you decide it's time to make a change and maybe readjust what I'm shooting for?
Yeah, I mean, I'll answer really quickly and I'll throw it over to Matt. But I think the hard part is, like, say your goal is to play in college, which is a great goal. It's something that only 3% of players get to do. And with the influx of international players, it's even more hard, right? It's even more difficult now. The hard part is if your goal is to play in college and then you get there, like this is what I did. I wanted to play in college more than anything. And I got to college. And my freshman year in college, I had a 2-month span where I was bad because I had reached my goal, And so for me, I think, again, the process supersedes the goal, and it's boring, but the process is the process. Meaning, instead of just saying, like, I want to average 20 points a game. When I was in high school, to me, a good game was if I had 15 points a game, which is so selfish because win or lose, if we won and I had 17, I would tell myself, like, man, I played really well. Like, think how selfish that is. When I learned to lose myself in the investment of my teammates, I scored more and I played better. Meaning, I know that I played at a junior college for my first 2 years, and my life mentor was my head coach. And he said this, and I loved it. I was playing so selfishly. He said, you need to realize you need to have mentors who speak your name in a room full of opportunities. Meaning, I want to get you to another level. And when I'm in a room with other coaches, I will do that, but you need to give me a reason to do so. And you do that by losing yourself and your teammates. And so when I became just as excited when my teammate hit a corner 3 than when I scored at the rim, everything changed for me. Like, I got so invested in winning games that I would do dirty work. Like Rudy said, I'm a tall point guard, so I try to get 6 or 7 rebounds a game, 2 or 3 of them on the offensive glass, and then I'd get a putback and I get fouled. And so now, instead of at halftime, I would sit and think, okay, do I have 10 points? Am I on track to getting 16 this game? Like, instead of that, it's how are we playing? How am I defending? Am I fouling? Am I turning it over? Like, that changed everything for me. And then my goals changed. The goal wasn't, man, I want to average this many so I get all conference. It's, I will be the best version of myself, and this is what it looks like. And then after games, I can see if I did those things.
So good. So good, D. Appreciate you sharing that, man. Great job. Matt, passing it over to you. What other wisdom do you have to impart on the folks on this call?
Oh, so good. I would say I'm going to 2 things. The first one specifically when it comes to changing our goals. First of all, like self-assessing where you're at right now. Like, that's assuming we know that we've hit the level we need to be at our age and stage. And I would say this, if when other teams are preparing to play against your team, there's not something on the scouting report about you This not all bold, all caps, underline, highlight. Do not let Rudy catch and shoot, right? That was on the scouting report when he was in college. Like, he was a 50% three-point shooter in games. Do not let Rudy catch and shoot. Like, if he was going to catch and shoot, that defender was probably getting subbed out of the game. If there's not something to that level that you're already pulling the attention of other teams, then you got to get that thing first. And I think so many times as players, we try to become good at a lot of things versus becoming world-class at one thing. And so what is that one thing you become world-class at? And for anybody on the call right now that's unsure, be a world-class shooter. I've been going through the Q&A over these last two secrets, as you guys been taking the heavy load of the sharing. And I see so many questions about, how do I get recruited? I want to play in college. In high school, I'm playing maybe a big, but I know in college, I'll be a wing or a guard. Like, shooting translates more than any other skill in basketball right now. And if you are not a knockdown shooter, meaning the defense has to close out on you every time you catch the basketball at the three-point line, then you haven't found that next thing to work on yet. Dustin, you talk about this. You've coached the college level. I've got so many friends, and I help so many athletes go play at the college level. The number one question I get asked, right, on court, we're not talking about the grades, we're not talking about what kind of teammate you are. All those things typically come first. When it comes down to skill set, the first question any college coach can ask, how well can he or she shoot the basketball? And if you don't do that at a high level, that's the thing to focus on next to become the player you want to be. I could talk all day, all night about this, but I'm going to, Rudy, go back to you. Where else do you want to take us?
Well, I think that's a good point, Matt. What Matt just did was, as a mentor for people, right? And Matt mentors players, coaches, parents, just general people outside of the basketball space. And the thing I love about Matt's been a mentor to me. Love that guy. He's just awesome, right? But one thing I love about Matt is he's always going to give me the truth. And that's why I go to him when I need advice, because I know that whether it's something I want to hear or it's something I don't want to hear, he's going to tell me what I need, not what I want. And, I mentioned it earlier in our secret number one, but I think in order to really be able to create goals that are going to help you, that are attainable, but also are things that you should be focused on and your goals are correct, a lot of us don't know what that is. We don't have the prior context. And I know I didn't when I was a teenager. Like, I was, the first person to go and play college sports, in my family. Nobody knew what it looked like to get recruited. Nobody looked like for what college coaches were actually looking for. And so I had to figure a lot of that stuff out on my own. Now, looking back, there are a lot of things that I could have done differently and made it easier for myself. And I think for a lot of you need to, right, parents, right, if you don't know, go find somebody that does. Find people that you trust. There's a coach or a trainer, somebody in your area or somebody that you've encountered, a PGC director maybe, that you trust, and we'll give you advice. We'll help you figure out what that next step is. But you got to find somebody that's going to help you, because otherwise you are just kind of grasping at straws and hoping that you're choosing the right things. And so I think my last piece on, creating new goals and when to figure that out, have somebody that's been through those trenches, been through the fire themselves, have somebody that knows what they're talking about, sit there with you through the process, because that's really going to help you get from where you are to where you want to be. And so with that being said, that covers our 5. But I know that there's a ton of stuff in the Q&A box right now. And you guys have been an awesome group, by the way. Love to hear just the snaps and the celebrations that you guys are dropping in there. We've got so many people on this call. We ended up getting right about 800 people, but we're not done yet. We still got plenty of stuff to go. We still got about 10 minutes here that we're going to hit on some of the Q&A boxes. So make sure you guys stay locked in. And I think Matt has one that he's been looking to kind of touch in on. So Matt, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Actually, Rudy, I have a question that stood out to me that I'm going to pose to you. You've been being the point guard, leading us all night. I'm going to take the rock right now, and you're just going to spot up on the wing, and you're about to get the ball back. Before I give you that question, so many people asking about how to stand out at tryouts. And like Rudy mentioned, that was one of the webinars we did last year. I know that content is still all across our social media, PGC. I also, the PGC Twitter account. So if you don't follow PGC on Twitter, go follow them right now at PGC Basketball. Just retweeted a list of 15 ways to stand out at practice. And that's something that most of those things were things we talked about basically 1 year ago tonight, preseason, but there are 15 great ideas, ways. Unfortunately, we don't have time to answer every question in the chat box or really go deep on every single one, but go check out the PGC Twitter if you want that. All right, Rudy, this comes from Dwayne. And Dwayne, this might not be the exact wording you used as I was writing it down, but Rudy, and this other people had similar questions to Dwayne. How do you deal with pregame nerves? Because I think that also applies to tryouts. right? Like if you're the 10th grader who did not make your ninth grade team, like the pre-tryout nerves are there as well. So how would you recommend we handle those, Rudy?
Yeah, man, that's it's such a great question to ask, because the reality is, like, there is a healthy amount of nerves, and I think everybody needs to understand that. Some people will be like, well, I get nervous and I need to fight that. I shouldn't be nervous. No, that's a good thing. That means you care. Like, if you're not nervous going into a big game, you don't really care that much about that game, whether you win or lose. If you're not nervous going into a tryout, like, I still remember in high school as a rising senior, I was an all-conference returner. I was going to be the star player on the team, and tryouts came around, and for whatever reason, I was still a little nervous going into tryouts. And it's like, come on, man. Like, I'm gonna be the starting point guard and might be player of the year. How am I nervous? But I cared about tryouts, and I wanted to show my coaches that I had been working. And so I think there's a healthy amount of nerves that you should have. So don't run away from them. I think just understanding how to, control them and make sure they don't control you. And you learn how to control your emotions through your preparation. Your preparation can eliminate a lot of those bad nerves. It can help you control those nerves, because the reality is you're going to feel them. But when you know in your heart of hearts, through the work that you've put in, that you've prepared for that moment, and here's where the nerves usually settle, at least for me. And you guys tell me if you were different, but as a competitor, I worked so hard in off seasons, my training, my preparation. I had my pre-practice and pre-game routines that I'd go through over and over again. So I'd go out there and I'd be out there before any other player was. I'd be getting my workout before any other player was. I got up more shots in pregame than any other player. I was in a full sweat going into the national anthem. I knew when I stepped on the court and I looked at whoever I was competing against, whether it was a team on the other side or it was people that were competing for the same spots that I were at a tryout. I could look across the line. I could look across and see them and say, I know I've outworked you, and there's no way that I'm going to let you beat me with the amount of work that I put in. You don't get to go halfway when I've been going as hard as I can for the past few weeks, months, years, and then you come out here and beat me today. Like, there was a calm confidence where I just knew I had put the work in to where they couldn't beat me. Like, I knew I was better. And that comes from the preparation that I put in day out on game days. So if you have a consistent routine and you know you're outworking your competition, you'll still have some nerves beforehand. But when you actually step out there and the ball gets tipped and the ball gets into your hand for the first times, or you sit down on defense, there's something that happens and there's a flip that switches where those nerves kind of just go away because you know you have it. So I'll stop there. I think Dustin might have something to add, but yeah, I'll pass it back to you, Matt. What you got?
Oh, that's great. I was all into your answer. That's what you were seeing. The expressions on my face was so good. Dustin, I'm gonna come to you with the next question. And really what I'm doing right now for everyone who's watching this live or maybe on replay is trying to find what questions are coming up the most. And so just that's the largest of our population right now that has the same question. I want to answer that. So Dustin, now I know you're just big, tall, swole, so you've never had to deal with this yourself. But a lot of people in the chat are just talking about, I'm a smaller guard. I'm a smaller player on my team. I might be big, but I'm younger, right? I see several like freshmen say I'm 6'2", 6'3", but I'm skinny, I'm scrawny. So whether it's a height thing, whether it's just a size thing, how can you stand out to have your best season? How can you get ready going in tryouts as a smaller player?
One, like, I am 120 pounds at my best. Like, here's a light pole. We look the exact same build. I'm very small. But here's what I would say. This collapses time frames for sure. One is footwork is the lifeblood of a basketball player. It doesn't matter how big and strong you are for the most part. Like, get really educated inside the arcs with good footwork, meaning step throughs, pivots, 1 foot finish, 2 foot finish. If your footwork is really good, technique is the great equalizer as a basketball player. And so when you play more athletic players, develop better technique, and you've now equated the playing field. And so my favorite players that I like to watch are masters of deception on the men's side and the women's side. They're so good at the defense thinks they have them, and then they do something crafty like Luka or like Plum, and they'll step through and they'll get a layup on the other side of the floor. And so if you aren't the biggest, strongest, this is what I like. My rip game is pretty good and my step throughs are pretty good. But I don't rise to the occasion. I fall upon those habits. And so I would say to everybody, balance is a really big habit to have as a basketball player. It allows you to make more shots, make better decisions, and play with contact. And so specifically inside the arcs or inside the first and second box, get really good at step throughs and pivots.
Love that, man. Matt, we got time for one more. We could do one more. I know we're running short on time here, but I want to make sure we hit one more. We got to give the people what they want. There's one more question. If you had to pick one question, what would you ask?
Well, I'll say this one's becoming, I had one more ready, Rudy, just so happens. So I'm going to take my first 30-second crack at the answer, and then Dustin, Rudy, feel free to chime in. Lots of questions about tough teammates, right? Even saw several, like, either I've been to PGC or my son or daughter's been to PGC, and now they understand it and love it, or maybe it's your first time on the webinar and understanding our culture, but teammates are tough. You go back and they don't want it, or your coach is a yeller and a screamer and may not be into these things. I would say this: when it comes to your team and you want to change the culture and change the atmosphere, the number one thing to do is pick the lowest hanging fruit first. I think a lot of times we as players, we go after the toughest person to win over, or maybe they're the coolest person or the best player on our team. But really, go find that person that's most like you and most like you think that's like going to come to being who, like, as teammates, you need to be the fastest, and work on that one person first. And now it goes from 1 to 2. When there's 2 of you, now you go find the next 2 who are ready to make that jump. 2 becomes 4, 4 becomes 8, and very quickly, that's the majority of your team is doing. So I'm trying to change the mindset and the way every teammate shows up at once. Find that one teammate and work on them first. Rudy, Dustin, what else would you add, especially with coaches? You got tough coaches you're playing for.
Big topic. I know we don't have a lot of time, but I think my big thing would be you got to meet them where they're at. And I would say start small, right? Start small and get small wins. Usually when players fail at bringing PGC back home, it's because they come home with 100 things and they show all 100 things at one time, and they overwhelm the people that are around them by showing them a completely different person, right? And so that can be shocking to the people around you. And what people don't understand or don't know, they fear. And that's where you get a lot of pushback. So what I would say is, if you got 100 things that you want to bring back to your team right now, go show 1 or 2 of them. And it's crazy, but it almost goes under the radar. It's like they know that something's different about you, but they can't quite pinpoint what it is. And they're like, oh, okay, whatever. They're a little different, but that's fine. And then after a week or so, they just kind of get used to it. That's just who you are. And then you add the second and the third thing. So now you got 4 out of those 100 that you've added in. And slowly but surely, you just kind of leak these things in, right? You give them more high fives, and all of a sudden you're giving more celebrations the second week. And then all of a sudden you're giving a reminder every once in a while in week 3. And then all of a sudden you're coming up to coach and asking a question during every timeout. And that's in week 4. And slowly but surely you add in these little things that you wanted to bring back from PGC, but you do it in a way that's not overwhelming at the beginning. You piece it in. And if you do that right when you get back, let's say you're in a summer session, you got months before your season finally starts and your workouts with your team stuff and your summer leagues. And you could, by the time your season starts, you could have 70 or 80 out of those 100 things put in by that time. But you got to start slow and have little things. Otherwise, it's going to be overwhelming to the people that are around you. Dustin, you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, just the last thing. So, like, if your coach is really hard on you, don't lose the message and how it's delivered. Like, as best you can, just take that. The more it matters who said it, the less it actually means. Like, just take the information, get better from it. Number 2, if you have teammates that you don't mess with, like in that way, 1, be a dog, like play really hard, but then be unbelievably likable when the ball stops bouncing. Because I used to hear this from my coach, but the phrasing is, I don't like that man. I need to get to know him better. So if you don't connect well with somebody, get to know that person really, really well. The better you get to know them, those issues go away. But then the other part of that is just like, compete, be unbelievably competitive, but be so likable, like by Rudy said, by getting touches and by communicating.
And with that being said, guys, this is a great answer. I think that's a great message to end on. Matt, what a phenomenal question, right? We're talking about having the best season ever, and we're going to finish off with talking about how to deal with, difficult teammates. That can be a really tough topic that can really derail a season if you don't know how to deal with it. So I think that's a great way to end, and appreciate everybody staying on. Just a couple quick things I just dropped into the chat, so if we can hold the chat off really quick and nobody post, just so everybody can see it. We got our social media pages. Want to make sure that everybody has access to those. A lot of this information is in our social media pages. Look at our YouTubes. We're posting Twitter stuff every day with a lot of these topics. Instagram, same thing. And then we also have our priority list. You can get signed up right now and you'll get priority listing in terms of being able to apply first for our summer sessions. So if you're interested and want to make sure that you can reserve your spot, go ahead and join that priority list. The link is there in the chat box as well. And then we still have 3 weeks left of our fall shooting colleges. Matt talked about how important it is to become a great shooter. We still have 3 weeks left for you to become a great shooter with us at our fall shooting colleges. So go check that out as well. Just make sure that, hey, you stay in contact. We're here to serve. We love working with you guys. We really appreciate everybody coming on the call. We had 800 plus people on the call today. It's a huge number. So snaps to everybody for taking a Sunday evening to come in here and get better with us. And with that being said, until next time.